introduce Tom Zeuner, the Executive Director of the Northampton Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority. But most importantly, we're here for George Komelasky and John Long. And to remember, it's a little time that goes by. George and John both have touched all of our lives, whether it's tools to help us in our family, in our community, but mostly just to keep the memory of them alive. And this evening is all about that. Mr. Zeuner?
Thank you very much. My speech is only going to be about 45 minutes. It's actually a lot of pages, but being almost 62, I have large fonts and reading glasses. So that's how we're going here. Good evening. My name is Tom Zeuner. I'm the Executive Director of the Northampton Bucks County Municipal Authority. I'm also known as Tommy to others, or Thomas Allen to my wife when I'm in trouble. Thank you for attending this evening's dedication. This dedication is to recognize the decades of community service to two great individuals to the Northampton Township community. Welcome to the new home of our authority. A couple of years ago, the township expressed a desire for the acquisition of our former authority building and land to facilitate a new and expanded police facility. Approximately 8 years ago, that former building was dedicated to the memory of John Long. I was initially saddened that the memory of John's contribution to our community would be lost. Around the same time, we purchased the former Fox Chase Bank and decided to build a new branch at the new Addisville Commons downtown complex in Richboro, leaving this vacant facility for over a year. Let's say making it right for viable reuse. At the same time, with the township's request, they somehow wanted me to accommodate the tax collector going into here, in addition to having additional office space at the municipal complex. The challenge: move the authority office from where we were, integrate the tax collector to the new facility, and provide a free meeting space that we have here for our community, for our meetings, and for the public at large. The authority purchased the building and rehabilitated the layout to what you see today. Out of challenges, opportunities then present itself. We don't want to dedicate the new building to the memory of John Long and George Komelasky. That's why we're here this evening. People have told me that this is sitting predominantly in the center of town on the hill, and when we're actually having public meetings or people are using the facility, it looks like a big fishbowl. I don't know what they're talking about. Fishbowl on the hill in Richboro. But welcome to the fishbowl. And at this point, Mr. Deon, I'd like to actually undo the plaque, and then we'll kind of go through it.
That's fancy.
Yeah, Scott, you did it really well. Right.
Very nice.
This building is dedicated to the memory of John E. Long Jr. and George F. Komelasky, friends of the authority, men of integrity, leaders of our community. Let's start with the first quote, friends of the authority. Some people have asked me, was not John and George your friends? That really doesn't define it. Or are they your good friends? That really doesn't define it either. Let's get the facts straight. They were my dear friends. Not only were they my personal dear friends, but friends of the authority and the Northampton community at large. John served 18 years on the board of directors of this authority during the building boom of our community. George valued the philosophy of local representation, with our own neighbors championing the authority's values and missions. George served in excess of 3 decades as an elected township supervisor, nearly a third of a century. The second quote reads, men of integrity. Both John and George had one very valued character trait. When they gave you the word, it was gold. Frankly, that's why we are all here tonight, because we all remember that. 3 words define that character: trust, truth, and commitment. George and John, they didn't do what was easy. They didn't walk away from controversy. Also, life was never status quo. They both excelled at championing the meaning of, when always asked, what's the right thing to do, and act accordingly. They lived by that creed. That defines great men doing great work for the community. The third line reads, leaders of our community. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and most importantly, shows by example. And both of those men did that in incredible fashion. A great leader takes a little more of share of the blame and less share of the credit. They both did that. Leaders have the ability to effectively communicate, share their passion for ideals, demonstrate commitment to their shared success for the better good. These traits define the life of John E. Long Jr. and George F. Komelasky. I didn't realize until recently that F stood for Francis. If I had known that, I could have been busting on him for 25 years. There's the old saying that when you want something done, give it to someone that's always busy. And these two men were always busy, but they always got the job done. I had the pleasure of serving our community side by side with John on the Northampton, Southampton JCs, Bucks County Opportunity Council, the College Foundation Board, and whatever else he tactfully or untactfully recruited me for. You know, John, it was always hard for some reason or impossible to say no. I think about it. I would ask him, he would ask me to do something, I said I would think about it, and he goes, I'm glad you're on board. You were never really given a choice. He was extremely active in the Perilous Buck International, traveling to the Far East and promoting their mission. I took great delight in encouraging John to run for township supervisor in George's third term as his running mate. I had the same pleasure of running as George's running mate as township supervisor in his second term. He always reminded me that he garnered more votes than I did in the election. I always responded back, you were the incumbent and I was only 34 years old at the time. But he goes, I can count, I still beat you. I cannot list the organization that George was involved with. I tried. They are so vast that mere mortals comprehend. Besides Northampton Township and the plethora of committees that he attended, I also had the pleasure to serve side by side with George at the Bucks County Community College Foundation. Others may speak this evening to organizations and causes that George was involved, all with great passion and commitment. It's hard to believe that it's been nearly a decade, which will be this May, since the passing of my dear friend John. He was missed then, he is missed now, and I miss that funny laugh. I will share with you a story of my relationship with George in the last year or two of his life. On my way to work at the authority in the mornings, every week or two, sometimes more often, I would stop by his office. I'd be announced, then shuttled up to his office on the second floor, which I think many of you have been there before. The discussions would always start with, how is your family? Always, no exception. Do you want a cup of coffee? Black, no sugar. He would always ask me, decaf, right? Because Missy Carroll, that's my wife, wants you off caffeine. I always responded, yeah. We would chat, family, community, politics, life, the world, but always focusing on how to make it better today than we were yesterday. I always remember after 15 minutes or so, there'd be a little silence and I would respond, it's caffeinated, isn't it? I never got a verbal answer, but if you all know George's smile, I always got the George smirk going. Really, the best part about those coffees was it was always served in a white mug with large blue faded letters that read, long forms.
Yes.
I would love to know whatever happened to that mug. If the mug had ears, there would certainly be many stories to tell. Here we are, on a prominent corner in Richboro. community looking up at a fishbowl. That's changing tonight. With this memorial and this plaque, John and George are overlooks the fruit of their passion to the community. Personally, I will have the advantage of coming to work daily here than most of you will not. When I leave the building from my corner office, I will have the opportunity to look at this plaque and say, "Good night, dear friends." Some will have some speakers that wish to share with their thoughts on the memorial of these great men. Our next speaker is Janet Zeuner, President and CEO of the Komelasky International. Komelasky provides opportunities to explore and appreciate other culture, builds better lives for children around the globe, and promotes the legacy of its founder by preserving and interpreting the national landmark home. After Janet Mintzer, we will have Pat Poprik. Pat is the Bucks County Republican chair, and also happened to be the campaign manager for the Northampton supervisor race in 1991 when George and I were running mates. I was young to be elected to community service. She made me understand the definition of the word of tenacity. We won. Our friendship and her friendship bond with George spans decades. After Pat, I'll open up to the floor to anyone who desires to say a couple words before turning it over to members of the Long and Komelasky family if they desire to make any comments. Janet?
I'm here. Inviting me to speak about John and George tonight, two people that I hold in the highest esteem. John became a member of the Komelasky International Board in 2002, so I knew him from 2002 until he passed away. And I knew him professionally and I knew him socially. We did so many things together. We had traveled to Asia, Korea, around the world, New York City to meet with high-level donors. He was everywhere. I was at his home for get-togethers, at his house down in Avalon for some very good times. And also, I had two memorable weekends with John and the Willises at the Union League, which I'll never forget. He was just a great guy to be with. I'm not kidding, he called me daily when he was on the board. And now, who else did he call daily in this room? Raise your hand, or almost daily, okay? So we know what John did all the time. He called me, I will never forget, one time he just called me and said, "How's the weather up there?" And I'm like, got 3 things on the frying pan doing all this. I'm like, oh, it's good, you know, but that's the way he was. He was a telephone guy, he was a people person. He was a good man who cared deeply about this township, about Pearl Buck, about history. I heard many interesting stories about the water department, so I know he also cared deeply about being on the board of the water authority as well. He was a self-proclaimed tree hugger. I don't know if y'all knew that, but he literally called himself a tree hugger. He was a preservationist. And one of the things that he did at Pearl Buck, he had the board all chip in and buy trees to line our office building, because I guess in passing one time he said, why isn't there more trees here? And I said, it was actually on the original drawing plans, but I guess money was short and they never planted the tree. So one board meeting when he was chair, he passed around the envelopes and everybody chipped their money. And I walk past those trees every day from when they were these little tiny things to what they are today. And I always think of John. So over my desk, I have these 2 pictures of John. I took the thumbtacks out of them to bring them here. This one is when we were in China, which was really a great trip together. And he was so thrilled with being in China because he was chairman of the board. And in China, they have the 2 chairs where the head of the city would sit, and he, as chairman of the board, would sit on that seat, and he had a translator behind him and everything. Jim knows he was there videotaping it just like he's videotaping now. And so he loved it. It was a real high to be there, and he adored, I think, the experience, the highs. But I can tell you, he had a very soft stomach when it came to visiting the orphanages or the families that we served. He would do it, and he would go everywhere, but it was really hard on him. He could not stand to see that extent of deprivation and poverty. So I can tell you, he was a good man, and he dedicated himself to our organization truly for the goodness of the mission and continuing the good work that we did there. The one funny thing about him was, whenever he met anyone famous, or I met anyone famous, we had to get their autographs. So, you know, he was chairman of the board when Laura Bush came to Buck International, the thrill of his lifetime probably. And then, of course, I was going to Korea to meet up Colin Powell, and he bought his book and said, get him to sign it for me. And I'm really not that kind of person that likes to do that kind of thing, but I did it for John because I knew it was important to him. When we went to New York one time to have lunch with Arlene Dahl.
Yeah.
People my age know who Arlene Dahl is. And so at the end of the lunch, John says, can you sign this receipt? So I was always like, oh boy, you know. So that's why I think when I see his name there, and I know he'd be real happy it's on the top, but when I see his name, I just think John would love this. It's so just perfect way to remember him, because it would make him happy to know that his name is on this building. It's a really big thing. When John passed away, as all of us, it was a great shock. But you know, George was a really good, true friend to John till the very end of George's life, because if I needed something or something was going on, I could always pick up the phone and ask George this or that, and he continues John's friendship, helping out wherever he could, as did you, Pat. So thank you very much. I think this is a wonderful, wonderful tribute to two great men who lived their lives of service, of helping others, and building friendships. Look at all of us here in the room. And when I look around this room, I have a lot of friends in this room, thanks to John Long. So here's to George and John, and may their memory be everlasting.
Perspective than everybody up to this point. I'm the political mother. I literally, both of these gentlemen I met, well, obviously many years ago, and we run a Northampton Republican Club. We used to have a social arm of the Republican Party. So I'm in there and doing my thing, meet and greet and seeing who I can talk to. And George was there, and I'd never met him before. And we talked, and I walked away, and I said to one of the politicos, get that name and number. I knew instantly. I watched him work the room. And he wasn't even a politician yet. And he was doing the thing, and I thought, oh my God, well, look what happened. He grabbed me supervisor, and he's like, really? I'm like, George, you'd be great. I know. He's like, and 30 years later, were we right? He was wonderful. John Long starts out politics. He was in high school when I met him. He was a friend of Bob Flowers, who was our chairman. Bob had a son named Bobby. Bobby and John were like this. So poor John got stuck doing all the grunt work. I mean, picking up the signs, doing this. So we send them out to put political signs up when we were allowed to put them on telephone poles. So Bob Flowers Sr. said, don't put them low, they rip them off. So I said, well, what are they going to do? He said, take a ladder. So this is what they did. They take a ladder. Bobby, if you know Bobby Flowers is a big boy, he gets it. Well, it's not high enough. So John gets on the top, and Bobby lifts the ladder. Well, you can imagine what happened. They go down, and there was a little styrofoam cup on the ground where they were, it was at a construction area. Little styrofoam, and John promptly demolished the cup. Little did he know, under that cup was the sprinkler system for the entire development that they were putting in. Water's going all over, they get soaked, they're trying to stop the water, they come back to headquarters, bedraggled. I thought, well, this is it, now they're done. John will never be back doing anything. I mean, he's done in politics, he was soaked, he was not happy. Fast forward a couple years, John calls me up, he says, can I come see you? Yeah. Comes to my house, sits in my living room, and says, I think I want to run for supervisor. I said, you know better. You've seen what happened. She says, no, I got to do it. And I got to tell you, I've never regretted either one of those positions. He did it. He did a great job. Both of these men, look at the community service. Look at the time they gave. They just didn't do Northampton. You know, that's what we're hearing here. But these men did everything. George, I'm going to talk a little more about George. George was on the Bucks County block grant development. That's a big thing. All the money from the state comes in, all the townships get the money from that block grant. George served on that board, so he just didn't help the township, he helped the community. And then in 2002, Mark Schweitzer was the governor. Mark called me up, he says, we got an opening on the Pennsylvania Economic Development Finance Authority. I said, oh. And Mark was Bucks County. He said, do we have somebody? I said, oh yeah. George? Come back in. George never said no. No matter what we asked this man to do, no matter where he had to go, he served on that board from 2002 to 2016. And he was appointed by every governor, even after Mark. Because they knew what we knew. It didn't matter the registration of that man. His heart was in this community. He cared and gave and did like nobody. This is so appropriate, and I'm so honored to be part of it, because these are two guys who gave of themselves. And think of all the things we're saying they did. He did all these board members, and George and John. Think of their families. The time they spent doing that, they weren't at home. And I know you've all been thanked before, but I'm telling you, for everybody in this community, thank you again for giving them to us and letting us share them. It was a remarkable time for them and us too. And as we stand here and honor them tonight, look at these people. They came out because they care. And we care because they care. These are men that will not be forgotten. Years down, when we're all gone, somebody's going to come in and say, who are these people? And I hope somebody tells them, because they were loving men, community men. And I'm going to leave you with this typical George story. As you all know, I committed the biggest sin in my life. I moved out of Northampton.
Really?
Oh my goodness. John, my dear husband John's here. He found the house he wanted. I said, we went up to Buckingham. Well, I might have gone with you, Janet, to Timbuktu. Because George, you're going, where? Where? So we move into the new house. We're not there. I don't think a week. The phone rings. Hello? Hello? Speak up, please. I said, hello, is somebody there? Pat, it's George. Can you hear me? He never, ever let me forget. He would call, just like he'd call Jack, he'd call me and say, how's the snow up there? The same as where you are, George. I'm only 50. He teased me till the last minute that both of us lived in this community, that I was in Buckingham. But let me tell you, I'm here in Northampton because these men deserve every one of our thanks. They were wonderful people. They were loved. They gave more than humans should have to give. And today, this honor is well deserved. Thank you.
Toby, anyone want to say any words? Okay. Thank you all for coming. I just said two fast stories. I was never friends with John Law. Matter of fact, I was friends with Janine and Dave, sister and brother. And Dave says to me, "Oh, you know my brother-in-law." I said, "Yeah." I didn't like him very much, but through just simply politics and doing the right thing. You don't have to agree with somebody, but if somebody's in your face, as your father was all the time, if he wanted you to see his point of view, you eventually start to see his point of view. So I think we became very dear friends. With George, and I'm very quick, and these are my only two stories, George taught me how to count, and I thought I knew how to count. But George did something very, very unique when I first got on the board of supervisors. I wasn't invited. I kind of had to edge my way on. And he said, I want to teach you how to count, Deon. 1, 2, 3, let's go home. And that's inference that there's 5 supervisors. He only needs 3 votes. He doesn't need mine, and he really doesn't care what I do. So we learned to get along with one another. And through the years, we bonded. With the P. Palestina, myself, Jim Kenny, another dear friend that the senior center is aptly named after. We had, the first 2 years we were on the board, we were a wonderful, wonderful team. We did what we needed to do, what we were doing was right, and it wasn't always I would say the politically correct thing, but we tried to do the right thing. And with John, as his own way of doing the right thing, which was always doing the right thing with his own avenue, and George being very strong on his opinions, but they were always other people's ideas. George always made it someone else's idea. It was a wonderful community at the time to work with those two gentlemen. That's all I have tonight. If anyone else has anything to say, please come up and do it. If not, thank you very, very much for coming and enjoying this celebration this evening.
And
Thank you.
there's, I don't know if anybody wants to say anything, but there's plenty of wonderful little treats for everybody to eat when we're all wrapped up.
Come on, please. Now this is the time we're going to bring it to. Chris is going to come up to the Long family, hopefully Palace.
So this is amazing. Really, truly an honor. Those are some tough acts to follow, by the way. So thank you so much for sharing those stories. It really warms our heart to hear those stories, and I've got a few notes here, but nothing is elaborate. But you know, this is really the perfect way to celebrate the contributions of my father and George Komelasky, two men who really did dedicate a lot of their time and energy to the community, and something that was very visible on a day-to-day basis, every day, as Janet Mintzer said. So every day he's working the phones, my father, you know, talking to anyone and everyone that was willing to pick up the phone. But like so many people here, my dad really did care so deeply about this community, very, very deeply. And he was specifically very proud of his involvement in the Water and Sewer Authority. That was something that was extremely close to him, near and dear to his heart. I know he made some very, very close friends there at the authority, and that was just an amazing thing and an amazing part of his career. So while this evening is so special and such a great way to honor these two men, I think that one of the most important things is the part that makes it extra special is the fact that they get to share the plaque together. It's remarkable. These two guys were inseparable. They were two peas in a pod. You know, through handling serious matters of township official business, to the lighter side of life, playing pranks and constantly. But one thing that as Janet Mintzer had pointed out, these two in particular spent a lot of time on the phone together. Lots of time. So they started, you know, in the office, take it home, and they would talk on the phone while they were home. In the car, when cell phones became a big deal, they were constantly talking on the phone. My dad, I remember in high school, waking up, catching the bus, getting ready for school around 6:30, 6:45 in the morning. After a long meeting the night before, my dad would literally be in his bed on the phone talking to George Komelasky. And that was just a sure thing. So I'm sure these days, if they were around for water-resistant iPhones and whatnot, they could probably talk in the shower. So, you know, the most powerful compliment, my dad was big on compliments, very big on compliments, but he only gave them out when he thought they were deserved. So the most powerful compliment that I think I'd ever hear my dad give is, so-and-so is a good man. And I have to say that repeatedly, time and time and time again, I heard him say, George Komelasky is a good man. And that really, really sank in with me. And I think that he would be just incredibly proud to be memorialized in this way alongside his good friend, George Komelasky. So thank you so much to the board and to the authority, everyone involved in the authority, for having us and for taking this step to memorialize these two men, especially Mr. Deon and congratulations, by the way, on this building. It's beautiful. Can we give a round of applause? And also thank you to everyone here for joining us tonight. This has been just a really special moment. And thank you for helping us keep the memory alive for these two good men. Thank you very much.
Everyone enjoy the snacks, and
We're getting